f***ing in airport?
Hey, that was... Don't swear. What are we?
Werewolves, not werewolves.
Four vampires, Viago, Peter, Vladislav, and Deacon, share a flat in Wellington, New Zealand. They are followed around by a documentary crew as they go about their daily lives, which includes looking for new victims, dealing with a rival gang of werewolves, and whose turn it is to do the dishes.
The Good.
Obviously, this film is shot very much like a documentary, but I think it's interesting to watch a movie where it has a plot and it's set in the realm of fiction, and yet it also feels like a documentary. In a lot of ways, though, it plays out a little more like a reality show that's showing you somebody's life. But not in an MTV special celebrity kind of way. I actually find it quite hilarious that because this is styled like a documentary, exposition is the easiest thing ever to incorporate into the movie, because half of it is delivered when you take these characters aside and have them do their interview segments, just like you do in any documentary. The main comedic draw that this movie has is that despite you seeing a lot of very weird things, they treat it just as four people sharing a flat, even if they are vampires, and they act just very matter-of-fact and casual about it. And given those circumstances, it's the very normal reactions these vampires have to all the weirdness going on around them that makes this film so funny. Apart from the documentary cameraman, this movie also includes a few side characters that are human and interact with the vampires, and not just as victims. And while these human characters aren't exactly used to the vampires, they're also slightly desensitized to the weirdness, so seeing them act just relatively flatline in a similar way that the vampire characters do is also pretty funny. Despite the relatively casual sense of humor, this is a very colorful cast of characters. The four vampires sharing the flat are from four different periods of time. They come from many different walks of life, they're different ages, they view life differently, etc., etc. And doing this creates a wonderful dynamic between these guys, which is always good for any kind of plot that's going to involve people that have to share a living space. Both hijinks and otherwise ensue from the use of the vampire's various powers, and I think that, plus the traits of what vampires are, you know, they can't touch silver, their weakness is holy water and fire and sunlight, they can fly, they can turn into bats. All of this is used very well to portray vampires in a modern setting, you know, different from Dracula and Nosferatu, the castle-dwelling vampires who were isolationists and lured their victims to their castle to prey upon them. It's a new style, and I like it. And lastly, because you always gotta give a vampire movie points for this, there's a pretty good Twilight reference in it, and it's actually not the kind that you would expect.
The Iffy.
Although thinking back on it now and thinking that this is probably just an extension of a vampire's hypnosis, there are a few times in this movie where the characters are using their powers to accomplish certain things in kind of weird ways, and it feels sort of random, like, can they really do that as vampires? Do they have this power? Again, I think this is just an extension of the hypnosis, but while I was watching the movie, it just seemed a little random and Deus Ex Machina-ish to me. Remember that overly casual, very matter-of-fact tone of humor that I said permeates the entire movie? Well, sometimes that can get old, and if that's not your kind of humor, it will get old very, very quickly. However, at least in my opinion, the movie is funny enough that that never really starts to grate on my nerves.
The Bad.
This is a very simple movie with very simple intentions, and as such, there really wasn't much to it to stick out as bad.
The Verdict?
This movie was a nice change of pace for me, because for the last few weeks, I haven't really had that much that's been compelling me to go to the movie theater to watch something. This, however, shows me a very unique take on bringing vampires into the modern setting. And it was very funny. This is Detective Steve, thinking I should go watch independent films a little more often. Although, maybe not just yet.